you doing? This is Joel Adamas from Honda of downtown Chicago with your tech tip of the day. So something fun, exciting, I find, that I like about my job is that you never find the same thing every day going on. So on Saturday we had a client that came in that they had a problem with their brakes. They were making some noise. They were juddering, the car was shaking when they were braking. And when we took the wheels off, we noticed something pretty extraordinary. The client had told us that they had just bought a new set of brake pads and rotors at an independent shop versus coming to the dealership because they were able to save some money. Well, the brake rotor on my left, which is your right here, is the actual brake rotor that was put on by the aftermarket shop. And the brake rotor that is on my right here, your left, is the brake rotor that comes standard from the factory. So one thing I just wanted to point out to you guys is a couple different things. Number one, the brake rotor that is a non-Honda brake rotor is much smaller than the actual factory brake rotor, which when it reached its limit point was actually cutting into the actual brake pads themselves. The brake rotor from the Honda factory is much larger, so it covers much more of the brake pad when it makes contact to stop the car safely. The other thing you'll notice here is the height of the brake rotor is much lower than it is on the actual factory one, so it doesn't stick out enough, making enough contact with the actual rotor versus the factory one. If you were to look a little closer here too, you'll see some grooves. These lines here, this is the actual brake pad cutting into the rotor, or the actual rotor cutting against the brake pad, causing the brake pad life to diminish faster than possible, and also causing it to heat up, which is not good for the brake pad, not good for the rotor. So you notice that here on the factory one, there are no lines. These fit properly. These fit snug. So sometimes you'll save some extra money going with a non-factory component. But in this situation, I feel bad for the client because they had to pay twice for a brake job. They paid the independent shop once, and they ended up having to come and pay the dealer a second time. The technician also had a hard time getting this brake rotor off. He had to use a hammer, a rubber mallet, to get it off because it was just stuck onto the actual hub itself, where this one you have free play. And you'll see that in the video that we've included with this. So this is my tech tip of the day. Honda parts, factory parts for your vehicle always fit better because they are designed specifically for your car. Well, aftermarket is a universal part that fits some cars, but it doesn't fit all cars perfectly. So you'll save some money doing it in the beginning, but at some point later on down the road, you're going to end up paying the dealership again to do it correctly. So you always want to stick with the factory parts. You'll pay a little bit more money, but they'll last you a little bit longer, and they'll fit perfectly for your car. And that's my tech tip of the day. Once again, this is Joel Adamas with Honda of downtown Chicago, and if it's broken, we can fix it.
So here we have a perfect example of a non-Honda brake rotor. Our client took the car somewhere else. They were able to save tons of money, but they put very small brake rotors that don't fit on the car correctly, causing some warpage. The actual Honda brake rotor, as you can see, behind it has a lip and an edge much bigger in circumference that fits the vehicle perfectly. Your non-Honda brake rotors do not fit perfectly. They'll fit tight. You can't get them on or off completely without a hammer. When you have smaller brake rotors, this is what it does to your brake pad. You see these lines here. These lines are where the actual rotor, smaller rotor, was making contact, causing it to cut into the rotor, cut into the brake pad itself. So that's what happens. You might save some money going somewhere else, but if you put the wrong parts on, you're going to end up paying double. So this is an actual Honda brake rotor that fits perfectly onto the car. Not like earlier where we had to beat the living snot out of the other rotor to come off the car.
The lip here.
Notice how the lip is right there at the edge of the backing plate. It's perfectly on there. We go to the other side. Look how much space is left between the backing plate. Backing plate is just the dust shield here, and the rotor. You probably have about an inch of space there. All that space that's there is not good. Causes the rotor to be looser. And, not a good fit at all.